This lesson will be about statistical measures. Statistical measures are ways that we can characterize groups of numbers or data to describe them as a set. So one of the statistical measures is called the mode, and the mode is just the most common number in the data set. In this case, if we look at the data set given here, we can see that the mode is 3 because it comes up the most often. Another statistical measure is the median. The median is the middle of the numbers. And the way to find the median is you arrange the numbers so that they are in ascending order. So we have 1, 2, 3. Alright, now that we have our numbers in ascending order, all you have to do is cross off the ones at the ends until you can locate the one that's in the middle. In this case, what happened was that we ended up with 2 numbers in the middle because we had an even number of numbers in our data set. When that happens, you take the average of the 2 in the middle. In this case, both of our numbers are 3, so their average is just equal to 3. If we had had an odd number of numbers in the data set, to find the median, all you have to do is find the exact middle. The mean, or the arithmetic average, is another way of describing the data set. The way you find the arithmetic average is by adding up all the values and then dividing by the number of numbers. So in our case here, we would add up all of these numbers and then divide by the total number of numbers, which is 15. We can write this formula in sigma notation. So the mean equals the sum from 1 to n of xi over n, where xi just represents the ith number in the data set, and n represents the number of numbers. One way that we often write the mean is x bar, and that just means the average of the set of numbers. So far, we've talked about 3 statistical measures: the median, mean, and the mode. These 3 are called measures of center, or ways of describing what most of the numbers in the data set tend to be around. And it's a useful way of summarizing the data set. Now, how do we know which one to use in certain situations? If a data set has a lot of outliers, then the median is the best measure of center. You can use the mean when the data set is evenly distributed. And the mode works best when all of the data seems to be clustered around one single number. The next 2 statistical measures are going to be measures of spread, or measures that tell how far apart the numbers are. The range is simply equal to the largest number minus the smallest number. So for our sample data set here, our largest number is 10 and our smallest is 1. So our range is just equal to 10 minus 1, or 9. Another way to measure spread is with standard deviation. I'm going to abbreviate standard deviation with an S and write down a formula for it first. It's going to be a bit complicated, but I'll explain it after I write it. So the standard deviation is equal to the square root of 1 over n times the sum from 1 to n of xi minus x bar squared. So remember from last time that we said that x bar is equal to the average. So basically, when you're computing standard deviation, what you do is first you find the average, then you take each of the individual numbers and find their distance from the average, square that, add all of those together, divide by the number of numbers, and then take the square root in order to find the standard deviation. So if we were to take our sample set here, we begin by finding the average, which is the sum of all the numbers divided by the number of numbers, which in this case is 5. And so we end up with an average of 3. So now we're going to find how far each of these numbers is from 3 and square that distance. So find square of distance of each of the numbers. So that would be 1 minus 3 squared plus 3 minus 3 squared, 5 minus 3 squared, another 5 minus 3 squared, and 1 minus 3 squared. So all we've done is plugged in each of the numbers into our formula here, and that's what we're doing with the xi minus x bar. Now we can calculate this out. That would be a negative 2 squared, or 4, plus 0 plus 4 plus 4 plus another 4, or just 16. The next step is to divide by the number of numbers. So where we had 16, we're going to just take that and divide it by 5. And then the final step is take the square root. So s equals the square root of 16 over 5, or if we wanted to simplify that, 4 over the square root of 5, or 4/5 times the square root of 5.